JC, welcome. So nice to have you here. It's an opportunity for you and I to just have a little chat about Valley beers, Valley Day, hops, terroir, a little bit of history. I'm aware that there's probably at least one or two of our fans who don't know anything about Trillium. So I thought a great place to start would be to maybe get you to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what Trillium is. I mean, I know it's one of the most exciting breweries that I've ever had the pleasure of collaborating with. You do so many cool things. Give people a little taster. Who are you? What is Trillium?
Thanks, Pete. It's funny. I was just texting Esther because she's on her way home right now, and because we had just had a chat earlier today, Pete, and I was just texting her. It's like, I'm very upset that you and Joss are on the literal opposite side of the world, because I know we would spend so much more time together talking, working on fun, other cool stuff. So, yeah. So I got to get back over to New Zealand sooner than later, or vice versa. I would love to have you folks back here.
Oh, it would be lovely, JC. And look, we were talking earlier. I feel there's a lot of exciting stuff for you guys to come and see when you're next able to make it over to New Zealand. But yeah.
Yeah, so Trillium was started in, actually I signed the lease for our first location in January of 2011, which feels like a lifetime ago, because I don't know if you know this or not, but every 7 years or so, our bodies are basically completely regenerated with all new cells. So of course they're sort of like they're still doing that handoff. So there's still the transition of what happened before to what's happening now. But I'm close to 2 entirely new bodies since we've signed our first lease. So that's how long ago it was. So we started in this tiny little space, 2,300 square feet. I don't know how many meters that is. Yeah. In this Fort Point neighborhood in Boston, which is just outside of downtown, close to the water. And my background, home brewing, so I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, and just kind of made it up as I went along. But ultimately, I think that served us really well then, and still does today. Whereas I've been able to plug in the gaps both in my own knowledge base and surround myself with experts in the field, I still have that home brewer mentality where I just constantly want to ask the questions and challenge the standards and push against them to find out what happens when you do that, and let's go where other people don't.
Yeah. That's definitely a thing. It's definitely a thing, isn't it? Sometimes when people learn from formal education, you're taught the things that you can't do. And when you come from a background like yours, you're always asking the question, why not? Which is, I think that's a great thing to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've looked at all of where are the limits, and what happens if you just put your toe over the line. And then, this incredible thing happened. Well, let's put our whole foot over the line next time. So that's kind of, we take that approach in our close to 12 years of existence now. So that's sort of from like the underlying concept. We're a New England farmhouse style or inspired brewery. That's how we started, but we actually have a farm now, and we grow ingredients for our kitchen and for our beer, and now our new spirits and distilling program. So very aspirational, very hospitality focused. And some people get upset with this because I use the phrase "not just a brewery," and like that can make electricity go down your spine if you're a little bit sensitive about that. But we started as and will always be a brewery, but we're doing things in addition to, not instead of, being a brewery as well. So our hospitality program is the reason why we started. I didn't want to just make beer unto itself. I wanted to make beer to share with others, and then create places and build team and a hospitality program in which to share that beer, and then that food and our spirits, and then so much more of the other experiences that we then offer. So I'm starting to get it. It's starting to turn into a Trillium ad. So I guess
no, it's good. And look, I've been to your venues, and I mean, absolutely, they're some of the best spaces. I always feel like, as a brewer, I mean, I'm like you. My magical moments as a brewer are when you have a beer, you've created something, you're proud of it, you share it with someone. The sharing is important. You know, you don't want to just create beer in a vacuum. You want to share it with someone, and you want to see them enjoy it. That's, for me, that's the ultimate payback for everything, all the sweat and the hard work. But part of that, it's not just the beer, it's the space as well. You know, you can, if I think back about the most magical beers I've ever had in my life, those epiphanal magic moments, you know, when the planets all align, yes, it's definitely the liquid in the glass, but it's also the space you're in and the people you're with. And of course, you know, you and I, we can't necessarily manipulate the people that are going to be drinking with our customers, but we can definitely deal with the beer and the space, and that's so important. And you guys do that incredibly well. Yeah. And it's an interesting, your story, I think, and this is probably one of the reasons why we have vibed so well in the collaborations we've done over the years, is because it's a sort of a similar story with GP. We don't have a farm, but you know, we kicked off, we just celebrated our 13th birthday. So my background was that I did have a perfectly good career doing something completely different many years ago, but I chucked that away and went off to become a brewer. I brewed in England for probably 3 or 4 years at real ale breweries, and then I moved to Australia and brewed there in craft breweries, and then came over to Wellington where my brother was to set up Garage Project, a craft brewery, with his lifelong best friend Joss Ruffle, who his background was in computer gaming, so absolutely nothing to do with craft beer. But he'd been to the States and seen kind of the amazing rise of craft. And, you know, craft beer is fascinating, isn't it, JC? It really gets under people's skin. I don't think there's any other kind of things that make people throw away perfectly good careers to pursue. It's a passion. It's quite exciting. So anyway, yeah, we set up originally in a kind of completely dilapidated garage in a damp valley up the back end of Wellington, and we still 13 years later are in a damp, dilapidated garage in the back end of Wellington. Anyone who doesn't know about Wellington, we're officially the windiest city in the entire world. Did you know that?
I did not know that. Boston's the third windiest city in the U.S., so
there
not
we
quite
go.
the world. But
We beat you all. We are the windiest city in the world. I mean, we're a tiny city, but a super cool little place. Lots of great energy. It's a city that's built on coffee and now craft beer. It's a pretty cool place. And we've grown. We were tiny when we first started out. We had a little 50-litre pilot plant. That was all we could really afford. And we started off with this little exercise where we brewed a brand new beer every week for 6 months. We called it the 24-24, 24 beers in 24 weeks. It sounded audacious at the time. I mean, now we're banging out 3 different beers a week, and it kind of like pales in comparison. But at the time, it felt kind of exciting, and we built a brand off a tiny little kit and a bit of a cult following, and we've grown from there. I think we're now one of New Zealand's largest independent breweries, which is cool. Which is cool. So we've got Arto, which is the garage up the back of Wellington. We also have Wild Workshop, which is where I am at the moment. This is where we do all of our kind of wild, spontaneous brewing. Spawn season's just wrapping up now. So we've got a lot of stuff tucked away in puncheons. And then we also do a lot of, we've got a big production brewery up in the Hawke's Bay that does a lot of our 6-pack stuff for supermarket as well. That's enough. That's enough about Garage Project. We should talk about Valley Day. So I have to say, Joss, who is the other founder of Garage Project, along with my brother, Joss had this idea that we should basically reconnect on these beers. And, you know, we tend to like occasionally drop a Valley beer. And every time we do, in New Zealand, JC, there's a real cult following for these beers. People lose their minds over them. There has to be.
Like whenever GP releases a Valley beer, I know about it because my social media just starts pinging.
Yeah.
But on the opposite of the 12-hour schedule. So it's all night long. I have to remember to turn my phone on to silent mode because otherwise I'll have bad rest.
Yeah. So I think Josh's idea is cool because it's a chance. You know, we were dribbling these beers out once in a while, occasionally when we felt like it. This is an opportunity to enjoy all of them all at once, and both at your end and at ours. And I think that's pretty cool. We'll talk about that more as we go on. But it's probably worth telling everybody about how we originally got together and collaborated. You had a great
that's
story.
yeah. It was sometimes if you've been friends with folks for a bit of time, you can forget how you met. You
Yeah.
know, so I was like, I was wondering, I was kind of going back about, what's the first time? No, it was something before that. No, it was something before that. So it was actually in California. The folks at Firestone Walker, and the team there in their mixed farm cellar.
Yeah.
Jeffers and Jim, as well as Brindleson, had reached out into the broader world. I remember a discussion I had with Jeffers. Boy, it's going on close to a decade ago, where we were really passionate about the beer wine hybrids, where it's like, just over the line of actually still being technically beer, but involved quite a lot of wine juice, mixed fermentation, spontaneous beers, barrel aging, et cetera, and all the processes associated with that. And he was shocked that there was somebody in Boston, one of the farthest places in the world away from wine country, was as equally passionate and had done quite a lot of research there. So anyway, that spawned the idea to have the Terroir Project, which was to take mixed or spontaneous beer from that region, tied with wine grapes grown in that region, bring them together, bring all the brewers together so that we can have this incredible terroir kind of experience, but through the lens of these crazy breweries from all around the world. So I was sat next to Garage Project, as I said before, that was next in line alphabetically. So it was sort of just by chance that I was Esther and I were standing next to Joss the entire day. And he was quite soft-spoken and polite and asked for samples of the beer. And then we started getting talking. It was like, oh my God, we're going to spend the whole day together. So that was an incredible way to meet. And it was so interesting to see the kinds of trajectory that we were on and the support that we were getting from our local community. And then, not too long after, he was invited to the Hoppy Symposium and making beer together. And it just kind of snowballed from there.
I love that we got together because we were alphabetized. It's like starting school and your best friend just being your best friend simply because they were next in line and got sat beside you. It's great. Fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, you're kind of sitting next to somebody. Hey, my name's JC. What's your name?
Are you scared too? Yes, I'm scared.
You want to be friends today?
You want to be my best friend?
Yeah.
I had to do the same thing. I mean, my memory was cloudy because it has been so long, but I look back to when we first brewed the first Valley beer, Sunrise Valley, and it was in 2019. And in some ways that surprised me because I thought it was further, like earlier than that, but it was just 2019, and it just made me think a lot's happened since then, hasn't it?
Yeah, right.
It was a carefree time. It was a simpler time. So we came to visit you, and my memory of that was that we, obviously Josh had made that connection, came to see your incredible brewery, and what we brought to the collaboration was the hops. And we had just started, and we can talk about this a lot more later, but we had just started a very close relationship, an enduring relationship with a hop farm in New Zealand called Freestyle. And Freestyle are fascinating because they basically, before Freestyle, you couldn't select hops in New Zealand. The hops were everyone grew their hops. The hops were then, taken to a central area. They were homogenized, and you received a bag of hops. So Freestyle kind of broke that chain and opened up this idea of selection. And look, JC, I mean, it was a game changer for me to actually make a connection with a grower, to really experience their passion for growing hops. And for them also, it's a two-way thing, for them to experience, the passion that brewers have for putting hops in beer. So it was the start of a really cool relationship, and I love the attention to detail that Freestyle had around growing hops. So there are two hops in particular that we have always used at GP. We use them in Pernicious Weed, which was one of our very first brews and continues to be one of our kind of flagships. It's a real old school West Coast IPA style, but with New Zealand hops. And it's Nelson Sauvin and Racco. And so chatting before we came, those were the hops that we decided that we'd bring, and we brought them exclusively Freestyle grown Nelson and Racco. That's what I remember. Don't know if we brought them in our bags. We have been known to do that. Kind of hard to get through customs, but
Yeah, I remember when Esther and I had went to New Zealand for hop selection. Felt lucky to be invited to Freestyle to kind of understand that. The approach that Freestyle took at that point, and still does, was very differentiated from how a lot of other hop farms operate, and really kind of tugged at my old farmer heartstrings, right? So the use of cover crops, minimal disturbance, boy, just you could not have made it any more picturesque for me. Going out there and seeing goats in the fields as they were kind of keeping the weeds down, eating the bottom leaves off the vines to encourage airflow, adding fertility to the soil in a single pass. I mean, doesn't get much better for a guy like me. It was absolutely incredible to see that. And that type of holistic approach to agriculture that is layered on top of agronomic and scientific knowledge, and the terroir from that farm, and truly a team that cares about those kinds of things and wants to not shutter it and say, hey, we wholly own this, and you'll get what you like, and we'll tell you what you can get. No, they brought everybody in to continue and expand that learning and bring passionate people together to kind of share that with more people. So that was incredible. And they've only grown in that way since then. But I knew how special that place was. And then, Esther and I look up, it was like, what is this place called? Sunrise Valley. Well, isn't that's perfect. That's extremely corny, but on note.
And that's where it all begins. I mean, look, so for American fans watching this, some might not know, we're really lucky in New Zealand. We don't have a lot of the hop pests that other countries have. So, there are organic, like pure organic hop growers here in New Zealand, but even the non-organic growers, really very little pesticide is ever used, if any. To my knowledge, I don't think Freestyle don't use any at all. A lot of natural predation, releasing kind of natural predators into the fields at timely bits. We don't have even the kind of the mildew issues that other people have. So these hops are incredibly pure, which really, they're fantastic. Really, we're lucky and work very hard to try and keep it that way. But what I love especially about Freestyle is their attention to detail around when to harvest things as well. Not just, it's not just how they grow them and how they tend them, which is very mindful, but also, when to pick them. Being there during harvest is fascinating. It's like somebody playing a game of chicken. These hops ripen, and over the years, Dave, who manages the farm, works on the farm, through his interaction with brewers, he knows which hops people want and which ones give us the best beer, and they're the latest picked. So it's like playing a game of chicken to try and leave the hops on the vine to the point where they're almost past it, they're almost falling off, and then picking them, because that gives you the ultimate kind of like tropical, intense character. It's pretty cool. I love that you were talking earlier about Terroir Project, which is obviously, terroir is a word that winemakers use a lot. they're justified in doing it. But I think it's really cool to talk about terroir with hops as well. And for me, that's really what this Valley series is about. Are you, with Trillium and your selection of hops, how aware of terroir are you guys?
I think that, with the way that the various vendors grow hops, and then bring them through the various channels, it's taken us a number of years to grow to a size where we are able to do selection and then develop a relationship with the various vendors that we do work with that then know exactly what we're looking for and then are able to kind of almost reverse engineer. Oh, you like the way that these hop farms in these regions grow their hops. Isn't that interesting? And then those are the folks that we're told, and then we've started to develop those direct relationships as well. They do take extra special care, and those seems to be the extra nerdy farmers. And we've through sensory panels, both during the rub and trial fermentations, it's now been several years in a row that in a completely blinded way, we're choosing hops from the same farm. So by just by a matter of chance, maybe not chance, right? That we're actually getting synced up with the farmers that have that special terroir laid on top of the passionate people behind the farmers and everybody downstream from there as well. So I have my goals about what I would like to see in order to be able to one day grow hops at our own farm in Connecticut and kind of harken back to what how hops kind of grew naturally in the wild in this region in New England, and how we could get some very expressive and yet healthy hops with minimal intervention. I've got some ideas there. Would never be scalable, but I've talked to some hop farmers about that, and they think I might be onto something. So you're right, hops are very susceptible to certain types of diseases, but particularly in certain regions. But mostly because of how they've grown. They've been taken out of their natural environment and meant to do things that maybe they're not designed to do in the way that we want them to do it. It's in a very efficient way. So anyway, so I've got all these crazy ideas about how we can grow hardy New England varieties at the edge of the woods in the way that they're supposed to grow with this. That's a separate discussion.
I can't wait. That sounds awesome. I have to say, I think the connection with, if I have to look back over the 13 years of Garage Project, one of the most rewarding things has been building relationships with hop growers. It's interesting, when I first brewed in England, I was talking to my team yesterday, when I first brewed in the UK, there was hop selection. Like, the brewers would go, we'd go to Kent, where the hops were grown, and you'd go to this ancient building, and you'd be ushered into a room, and they would bring out these wonderful little, they were wrapped in purple, like a purple card with a little brass pin, and they would lay these little, it was like Christmas. You'd have all these little parcels on the table, and you'd open them up. They were whole cone hops, and you'd look through them, and the head brewer, I was just a lowly brewer, but the head brewers would look through and make their selection. And then, as I moved on in my career, that was lost. And, quite often you were just stoked to be able to get hold of a variety. It's like, oh my God, I managed to get hold of some mosaic or whatever, and it would turn up in a silver bag, and you rip open a silver bag and, hope for the best, tip it in your beer. The connection was completely lost, and reconnecting with farmers has been so rewarding, to be able to like as I said, learn about their passion and what they get up to. But also terroir, and I really think that terroir, it is a real thing with hops. It's about the place that they're grown. I mean, it's obviously still about the passion and the you know, the agricultural practices and harvesting, when they harvest as well. But these beers, I think, are a really cool example of that. And you're talking about blind selection. You've done 3 valley beers, haven't you? You've done Sunrise, Matakitaki, and Willamette Valley. Is that right? Yeah. So we did a Yakima Valley as well with just to one up. But I have to tell you that the Yakima Valley, which we use Mosaic and Citra in, and the Willamette Valley, where we use the Strata, Luminosa, and Audacia, both of those ones, we went to Yakima Valley for selection. We chose our Mosaic and our Citra, you know, blind selection off a table of like probably, you know, 2 tables of 8 different hops. We picked both our Mosaic and our Citra from the same farm. So from double R ranches, we picked both the same, and that's blind, you know, with amazing choice on the table, but we ended up choosing one farm. And, you know, I think the same thing happened with going to Indie Hops and selecting for the Willamette Valley. We ended up picking all of those, the Strata, the Luminosa, and Audacia, all came from Coleman's alluvial farm, one single farm. It makes me feel good too, because you know, maybe it's not just random, our hop selection. You know, sometimes I wonder, are we just like rubbing things and just kind of getting carried away? But it makes me feel like there is an actual important difference in the places that these hops are grown. And these beers are such a great showcase for that, you know. How often do you get to try, you know, a number of beers, same base, but different hops, and really dig in and explore those flavors? We tasted all 4 of them yesterday with my team, and somebody was like, you know, which one's your favorite? And I genuinely cannot tell you which one my favorite is. They're all so exciting. I mean, for the punters, we should probably go through each one individually, maybe. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, we can kind of talk about, I think, the impact on the flavors and aromas, and we should talk about the base beer, kind of the elements that remain consistent throughout.
Yep.
To your point, that is the best way to kind of understand this. Sometimes some things are nuanced and some things are clearly different. Yeah, I'd happy to have you lead that conversation. I think the one point about the selecting the hops and kind of, it's like almost like you were passing a test you didn't feel very well prepared for, right? And then you're like, oh, you actually got you got a perfect score in it.
Yeah. So, whew, how did I do that? So, I mean, obviously, we can start with the base beer. I mean, I think we've kept exactly the same recipe over the years, and I mean, for me, this is the epitome of that kind of heavily dry hopped double IPA. Like I said, virtually a hop-free boil, and this is fascinating. We did this, and it felt a bit naughty when we first did it, JC. It's like, oh, no hot side hops. It felt transgressive, like we shouldn't be doing it, but we did. And it's fascinating, of all our beers, these valley beers with almost 0 hot side hop, they're the thickest, most opaque hazies that we do. They've got a real texture to them. I mean, obviously, you know, lots of really high protein additions, but it always fascinated me that they seem to be more hazy. And there's been research recently looking at dry hopping at various stages, and late dry hopping when there's been no hops beforehand gives by far and away the most intense permanent haze. This isn't yeast haze, this isn't yeast floating around, this is like real thick, intense polyphenol protein interaction. And you know, I just love that we kind of did it by accident by just not using any hot side hops and just doing this dry hop. So, I mean, Sunrise Valley first, like I said, it's Nelson Sauvin and Raco together.
I always find it interesting, the different pronunciations that we say in the US versus how it's supposed to be said, but Yeah, Rakau is how we say it.
So Rako.
Untsweka.
Yeah, yeah. Wait until we get to Matakitaki Valley, then I'll challenge you. You have to say that one. So these two hops, I love Nelson Sauvin because it plays so well with others. It is a hop that has a character when you use it by itself, but then it goes in all of these different directions depending on who you put it with. It's like a really good actor that can just change itself depending on who it's playing with. With Rako, I mean, it's one of my favorite combinations. And you know, with Sunrise, I get like fresh cut mango. Like there's a lot of tropical component to this. There's definitely like a really nice kind of like grapefruit zest, like citrusy grapefruit zest. And definitely like always with Rako and Nelson, a slightly like cheeky little weedy undernote. I don't know if you guys get the same kind of thing at your end.
Yeah, for sure. I think that you know how Trillium thinks about hops is we tend to prefer hops that you know they've got two strong legs and can stand on their own. We love that.
Yeah.
And Nelson is certainly one of those hops. It's probably top 3 or 4 for me.
Yeah.
Personal preference. But the range of texture and the various personalities as well. You talked about pick windows before. You can see all kinds of different expressions of Nelson. We tend to choose our Nelson to be in the early mid range for a little bit more of skews a little bit more towards the firmly delicate, if that makes sense. But does not have any of those diesel notes that can sometimes, in the right quantities, be very interesting, but can quickly go too far. And if anybody goes too far with their hops, it's Trillium. So we tend to add a very, very heavy dry hop load. So anything that might be just a hint on the table during the rub may rear its ugly head at the 5 and 6 pounds per barrel rate or beyond. So we actually tend to need to be something that's a little bit less explosive on the table because we're going to get it there with the rates that we go at. And then, how do you say Rakau?
Rako. Heavy on the A, Rako. Yeah.
Yeah, that one. So we tend to find that works perfectly as like almost like a hop power chord. It can't be on its own, but it can really support a hop like Nelson and fill in any tiny little missing spots that there might be there.
Best supporting actor.
Yeah.
I always think gets the award for best supporting actor.
Yeah, perfect. Yes. So bringing those two together for the first of the Sunrise Valley made a lot of sense for us, and that is generally how we'll use that hop. We would generally not use that as a single hop beer.
And we're the same. Yeah. Which then leads us on to Matakitaki Valley. So this is. I hope you guys are as stoked with these hops as we are. So this is fascinating. I should do a little bit of background for people who maybe don't know. In New Zealand, the hop growing region is traditionally sits around the top of the South Island in a very kind of like tight geographical zone around Motueka. And that's, in the past, hops were grown all over New Zealand, but it had kind of like shrunk down into this tiny little growing area. And no one was growing hops outside of that area. And a few years ago, probably 4 years ago maybe, some people got in touch with us and said, oh, look, you interested to come and have a look? We're thinking about starting a hop farm in a new area. And look, we drove out to this hop farm. It must be one of the most isolated hop farms that I have ever been to. You drive about 3 hours inland from Motueka, and then you go onto a dirt track, and you drive down this dirt track, and you get to the point where you're like, this can't be the right road. There can't be a hop farm at the end of this. And you're driving, and you really get to that point where you're about to turn around because you think you've made a mistake. And then suddenly you drive over a bridge through this little patch of like kind of ancient rainforest, and suddenly, bang, you turn a corner and there's this incredible, expansive river valley, and it's surrounded on three sides by mountains with native bush. And then there's this river, two rivers in fact, the Tutaki and the Matakitaki rivers running through this valley. And it's full of hops. Well, when we first went there, it wasn't. It was just, they had a little trial planting. And I was just staggered. I mean, starting a hop farm in this place, it looks like something from Lord of the Rings. And then we saw these hops, and look, there's a hop, it's not used in this beer, but there's a hop called Riwaka, which I have a love-hate relationship with. When I first tried it, it was the most remarkable hop I'd ever had, and I was like, this is incredible. And then over the years, I felt like the quality fell off. But seeing their Riwaka is a sickly-looking hop when you see it growing normally. It doesn't even reach the top of the wire quite often. It looks yellow and unwell. But the Riwaka growing in this place was incredible. It looked like nothing I'd seen. It was up the wire along. It looked lush. The flavor was incredible, like really bright limes. And so, look, I was kind of sold. So I've been following these people as they've grown, and they will eventually become one of New Zealand's biggest hop farms, which is remarkable in this kind of like magical, ideal spot out in the middle of nowhere. And genuinely, the flavor of these hops is so different to Sunrise Valley. I love Sunrise Valley, it's incredible, but there's a deeper, richer kind of tropical note that I get off these hops. So, you know, for people at your end and our drinkers, when you're trying Matakitaki Valley, besides Sunrise, they both have Nelson in, but the expression of that Nelson is so different. I think it gives you a really wonderful window into the impact of terroir. At the Matakitaki Valley, the Nelson Lakes hop farm there, it's way colder in winter, it's way hotter in summer because it's much higher up, and they actually get a lot more rain than they do in Motueka, which was particularly important in the last, we had a drought in Motueka, but up in the Matakitaki Valley, they were getting, you know, routine rain once every 7 days. It was just perfect. So I'm sold. I really love it. And, you know, it's a great chance for drinkers to be able to do that. Can't wait to take you there. It's amazing.
Yes, please. So it's such an incredible opportunity for Trillium to even be told that this place exists, because otherwise we would have no idea. We need to have friends like you that you know, if you're going to look through your list of people to call, and you called us to let us know, hey, this special place exists, we should make a beer with it, and then you can understand it through its hops, and that's exactly what we're able to do. We're able to bring a little piece of that incredible special place in the world into the glass in front of our guests half the world away. Unbelievable.
Cool. And so for the drinkers out there, that one is Nelson Sauvin and Motueka, but Motueka like you've never tried it before. It's a cool combo. Also bloody handy that it's in a valley as well, isn't it, JC? So we can keep this vibe going. And then we've got a brand new beer that we had never done before, and you hadn't either, which is the Willamette Valley, which is not as exotic for you guys, is it? But for us, it is. And look, for me, I've been a huge fan of Strata for many years. Kind of really cool. I love the pineapple-y notes that we get off it. I think it's really awesome. And always thought it would be kind of cool to do a Valley beer based around it, but I felt like we lacked anything to put with it that came from the same space. And then, like I said, last selection, we chose Luminosa, Audacia, and Strata all from the same farm, and it felt like it was a sign. And it's in a bloody valley as well, so there you go, Willamette Valley.
Yeah, decidedly American hop growing region with lots and lots of history. I won't name the farms that we chose ours from, but Oregon has been it's been going on 90% plus of our selections.
Yeah. Which is cool. Again, that's terroir, isn't it? It's really awesome. And, you know, really interesting, you were talking about how rako, you wouldn't necessarily use it on its own. I felt very much the same. I mean, you know, we need to explore Luminosa and Audacia a bit more, but you know, we dry hopped trials separately with all of them, and then tried combining them. And you know, it's fascinating. You know, I don't know. I think Luminosa and Audacia are definitely in that like best supporting actor category. You know, Strata by itself without them just wasn't the same. They just brought like a depth and a kind of a foundation, like a candy, sweet fruit kind of character that I feel really, it fills this beer out and makes it the kind of cool experience it is.
Yeah, I agree for sure. I think one of the things that the hop growers are challenged with as well is understanding some of the things you were talking about Riwaka as well. Where does it do best, and in what conditions, and after how long after it's been planted? Hops are perennial, herbaceous perennials, meaning that they die to the ground every winter and spring back up from their roots and can grow upwards of 30 feet, or what does that work out to be in meters? 10 meters, yeah, about 10 meters or so into the air. On these incredible trellis structures that the farmers have to put up and maintain. And then what is the correct spacing? And then what is that pick window and how much fertility they want? When do they want it? It does take a bit of time, and then that partnership with the brewers can tell them, hey, whatever you did last year is different from your yields, whatever, but the expression was more of what it was the prior year. So keep pushing down that end of the road.
Yeah.
And you don't really understand and know that, yes, a lot of these folks have experimental breweries, but they're not professional brewers that have to put their beer into customers and have the same sort of indifferent approaches from one brewery to the next to understand what that full range is. So what better way to get what might be the potential for Luminosa than get it into hands of folks like you and I, that we can really understand its full potential year after year after year, and keep pulling on that thread to find out where that potential is and make sure that information gets back to the farmers. And then we've seen such improvement over the last decade. The hops today are better than they were 10 years ago, and they'll be better in 10 years as well. It's as much as improvement has happened over the last 10 years, it's kind of hard to believe that it's going to be an even better place. But with the support from our guests and from everybody along the supply chain, it's absolutely going to happen.
Yeah, and it's that two-way communication, I think, JC, between us. Well, there we go. That's really cool. Fuck, it's nice to see you again, bro. So we should mention we've obviously the Valley Day is coming, and we're going to be releasing this beer to like a select group of venues, so people can get out there, sit down, and try these beers. Hopefully in the perfect place, like we were talking about before, and you can have one of those epiphanal moments. And also, obviously, available online. You guys, I think, are doing the same thing, aren't you?
Yeah, we've actually just put them out just a few days ago, and it is that rare opportunity. Trillium is kind of known for doing single hop versions of different kinds of beers. That one might be white double IPA that might be made with a single variety of hop, and it's also brewed with raw wildflower honey, or an IPA that might be double dry hopped. But very rare do you get a chance to actually have them produced at the same time and packaged at the same time, so you can have them at the same packaging date side by side. So this is actually a pretty rare opportunity for it. So hopefully people are taking advantage of that. It feel a little bit strange having three beers open in front of you, but I would recommend it.
8% double IPAs. What could possibly go wrong? Drink sensibly out there, folks. Yeah. So we have a duty of care, JC. Get some friends round. Have a valley party. That's what you do.
Perfect.
Exactly, exactly. Oh, JC, it's been such a pleasure catching up with you. You're a wonderful human being and a fantastic brewer, and I love the experience of collaborating with you.
I can't wait till we come up with the next.
Yeah, sounds great. Happy Valley Day. We'll see you around.
Cheers, Pete. Thank you. Bye.